When it comes to animation, Studio Ghibli is undoubtedly one of the best in the world because their movies tell brilliant stories, feature important themes and memorable characters, and maintain a commitment to tradition that just isn't seen in this day and age. The nearly 40-year-old studio has had an amazing run so far, but I've always wondered what is truly the quintessential film for any Ghibli newcomer. Something that any child, adult, or grandparent can walk into and say, "Wow, this is Ghibli?" Now, I've seen my fair share of Ghibli films over the years, some multiple times, but in order to answer this question, I would need to watch all of them. So that's exactly what I did, and after spending months constructing the perfect formula deep in a lab, so that didn't happen, but I took into account several factors when ranking them from worst to best. Keep in mind that this list only includes films released after the studio was founded, which means Nausicaa Valley of the Wind is not on here, and while many people consider this one to be a Ghibli film, I can't in good conscience do it, but know that I have something in store for that movie. Don't you worry your little head. Also, keep in mind that the rankings are based on just English dubs. Look, I know some of you out there are gonna want my head for these decisions. I'm sorry, but let's keep this civil, cool? Now, with all that said, let's dive right in. Earwig and the Witch is by far and away the worst Ghibli film ever created, and what makes it more perplexing is that this was the third film directed by Goro Miyazaki, the son of the great Hayao Miyazaki, who co-founded the studio. The biggest reason for this movie's debacle is the CGI, which feels awkward and lacks the majesticism that you usually get from their other works. The faces are cartoony, ugly, and honestly makes it look much lower budget than it really is. I'm not saying Ghibli shouldn't go down this route, as there are plenty of anime with excellent CGI that would have made this one more appealing. The story is about a cocky and mischievous orphan named Earwig, who always seems to get what she wants until she doesn't. A terrifying family of witches adopt her and basically make her do a bunch of housework, and while that seems like a bore, one thing I did appreciate about Earwig and the Witch is its liveliness. The constant battle of wits between Earwig and Baba Yaga and the heavy rock tunes that complement the overall wackiness of this movie is entertaining. But what happens at the end of the movie is literally one of those collective W2F moments we haven't seen since what? The Sopranos? There are plenty of other reasons why Earwig and the Witch deserves to be at the bottom of this list, and there is not enough there to pull it out, so if there was any doubt in your mind this film had some potential, then you can completely dismiss that notion. Now, we've all been teenagers once, or maybe some of you still are. Either way, Ocean Waves, or known in Japan as I Can Hear the Sea, is a story of just that. Taku and Yutaka are best friends, but when a new transfer student named Rikaku arrives at their high school, an awkward love triangle between these three starts a brewing. This made-for-TV film is based on a 90s Japanese novel of the same name, and Ghibli felt it was a great opportunity for their younger staff to create a reasonably cheap movie, but that definitely did not happen. Ocean Waves has plenty of flashbacks, even flashbacks within flashbacks, and it honestly can be a pain to keep up with at times, but overall the main premise is easy to follow. Ocean Waves is a well-told story, but is pretty lackluster everywhere else. The heart of the story is in the characters, and if you're not invested in them, then you won't enjoy it much. Tales from Earthsea is currently one of two adaptations from Ursula K. Le Guin's high fantasy series, and this movie is the better of the two, but that is the only redeeming quality this film has to offer. This was actually Goro Miyazaki's first directed movie, and the end product definitely shows. Now, if you're not familiar with the Earthsea series, then it basically revolves around a young wizard named Ged, who learns how to harness his magical powers and navigate the complex world where humans and dragons live amongst each other. This film is a mishmash of plot and character elements from the first 4 books of the series, and surprisingly Hayao Miyazaki's manga, Shuna's Journey. That means Tales from Earthsea is far from accurate. And Le Guin herself commented on this by saying, quote, "It is not my book. It is your movie. It is a good movie." Tales from Earthsea is just one big disappointment on all aspects, with the one standout being Willem Dafoe, who provided the raspy voice behind Cobb, the terrifying villain of the movie. Of all the Ghibli epic adventure films, This one is easily the weakest because of the bland writing, lack of comedic and suspenseful moments, and the animation is as generic as I've ever seen. What's more frustrating is that this family-friendly film could have been better, but it's just unremarkable, and Goro's inexperience did not help. Keep this in mind if you're contemplating on watching Tales from Earthsea. This movie won Top Billing at the Bunshin Kichigo Awards, which is the Japanese equivalent of the Razzies. Just because most of the Red Turtles animation was done outside of Ghibli does not mean it is not a Ghibli movie. The Venerable studio has long wanted to bring Dutch animator Michael Dudok de Wit on board after watching his Oscar-winning short film Father and Daughter, which is indeed a nice little film that you should check out. The Red Turtle involves a man shipwrecked on an island who relentlessly tries to escape, except a giant red turtle keeps getting in his way. This movie is unique and a first for Ghibli in that there is zero dialogue, but this is not a burden on the viewer because you'll understand what's going on every step of the way. The sketchily rendered characters say much more with their movements than their simple black dot eyes ever could. A few French animation studios helped create this film, and the experimental nature easily makes this one the black sheep of the Ghibliverse. The overall story is not only darker, but more existential than your typical Ghibli film, which might not appeal to the greatest of audiences. Regardless, The Red Turtle is an avant-garde kind of movie that was interesting enough to score an Oscar nomination, but not necessarily the one you need to watch. Pompoko is one of the most perplexing stories for people outside of Japan to understand, but it tells an important tale everyone should pay attention to. This film is an environmental allegory about the Tanuki who engaged in a battle against the humans for threatening their forest habitat by building a suburban development over it. Regardless of what this movie tells you, the Tanuki are raccoon dogs, not raccoons, and they play a major role in Japanese mythology. Now, Tanuki Maru may be the first time you've ever heard of them, but these old Japanese folktales have long told how the Tanuki could shapeshift into women and enlarge their scrotum in order to save people, and both traits are shown throughout. Pompoko has one of the longest runtimes, and honestly would have benefited from being shorter. On the surface, the film is a fun and playful one, but the underlying symbolism of environmental endangerment is darker, and this slow burn can be hard to watch. As you already know, this one is steeped in Japanese folklore, so if you're unfamiliar then, a lot may go over your head. Pompoko is the kind of movie that will delight you one moment and disturb you the next, which can be off-putting. Only Yesterday is one of 3 Ghibli movies with a perfect 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and that should tell you how good this film is. The year is 1982, and Taiko is a 20-something unmarried woman who takes a trip to the countryside. En route to visit her sister-in-laws in Yamagata by sleeper train, she reminisces about her childhood, and most of this movie is just a series of flashbacks. She looks back at the big moments in her life, like when she tried pineapple for the first time, her first period, and her frustrations with mathematics. Now, some of these nostalgic trips were delightful, but some were not, and this is one of those movies that will probably have you dredging up your past. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll smile because there is a lot to feel within this film. Only Yesterday is a wonderful movie that's worthy of its high praise, but isn't higher in this list because it caters to a very specific audience. Anyone younger than 25 just needs to spend some more time on Earth to understand what this movie actually means. If you've watched The Borrowers, then you're basically getting a gorgeously animated and better adapted version in The Secret World of Arrietty. Based on a novel by Mary Norton, it centers around a family of tiny people who live within the walls and floors of a typical household, borrowing stuff from unsuspecting humans in order to survive. Arrietty is a young borrower who meets a sickly boy named Sho, whose story is quite the tearjerker. This movie is much more dramatic than The Borrowers, and did I mention the animation is absolutely gorgeous? The story is nothing special in my opinion, but is a good family film nonetheless, especially when themes like friendship are prevalent. The British dub is the cinematic debut of our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Tom Holland, and that is something the world can collectively be thankful for, am I right? Either way, Arrietty is a decent movie with amazing animation. I did mention that already, right? But if you've seen The Borrowers, then know that there is nothing new you're truly getting. Well, I'll be darned. Pigs can fly after all. Porco Rosso is about a World War I aviator ace turned bounty hunter who seeks revenge against an American rival who shoots down his plane. Miyazaki not only directed this film, but created the manga it's based on. It has elements of those old school noir films, like Dick Tracy. There's the anti-hero protagonist with a mysterious past, corrupt characters, post-war environment, and even some flashbacks with a little narration. This movie has plenty of action with timely bits of comedy, and one of the best parts is in the first few minutes where a bunch of kids talk smack to the pirates who are getting absolutely walloped by the man-pig himself. This movie has one of the best characters in Ghibli, in Fio, who is a talented young girl that knows her way around a plane. The reason why Fio is so great is because she's a great example that girls can do anything they want, even a male-dominated occupation like a mechanic. Overall, Porco Rosso is definitely one of the better movies in the library because it at least keeps you intrigued. But I will say the only problem is that a lot was left on the table, like how did Porco turn into a pig in the first place? The Wind Rises is a fictionalized biographical film of Jiro Horikoshi, who designed the Zero fighter plane that was used during the infamous Pearl Harbor incident of World War II. This film is also the first of 4 straight Oscar nominations Ghibli would receive in the 2010s. This very loose adaptation chronicles his life from a little kid dreaming of building planes to becoming a successful engineer. This film was supposed to be the swan song for Hayao Miyazaki, who conceptualized everything for The Wind Rises, starting from the manga it's based from. The movie is a very good one that will make you emotional on all sides of the spectrum because Jiro himself goes through a lot of trials and tribulations in his work and his love life. The one thing about Jiro that I really liked is how he never wavered, no matter how many times things didn't go his way, and I feel that's the biggest takeaway Miyazaki wanted people to get from this film. Realistically speaking, biopics, even one as loosely based as The Wind Rises, will most likely bore most kids, unless they really enjoy planes, but you can't deny how beautiful and Oscar-worthy this one is. Goro Miyazaki's second directed film, From Up on Poppy Hill, is his best one, which begs the question how he dropped the ball so badly with Earwig and the Witch. This post-war movie centers around a high school girl named Umi, who joins an after-school club in their fight to save the clubhouse from being torn down. She meets a boy named Shun, and the two start a friendship where they learn a lot more about each other and themselves. From Up on Poppy Hill is a wholesome story that preaches fighting for your beliefs and the importance of remembering your history. The animation in this movie is as smooth as the studio gets, with a cute story, but like Ocean Waves, there's nothing exciting that will hook you in, so beware. Look, I don't have a problem with slice of lifes, I swear. The Cat Returns is Ghibli's only spin-off movie from Whisper of the Heart, a much better film than this one, but I will say that this one is much more pleasant than I ever would have expected. The story is simple. Haru is a shy high schooler who saves a cat from Truck-kun, and it turns out this cat is the prince of the Cat Kingdom. Let's just say that Haru is in for quite the journey as she is taken to the kingdom as a thanks. So what makes The Cat Return so unexpectedly nice is that it's just a genuinely fun adventure, and the performances of Carrie Yules as the Baron, the cool and suave cat of every Aluruphile's dreams, and the great Tim Curry, who plays the foolish and bewildered Cat King, are equally fantastic, hands down. The Cat Returns will keep the whole family entertained, even if it's only for a measly 75 minutes. The Oscar-nominated film When Marnie Was There is notable in many ways. First, it was the final Ghibli movie for Hiromasa Yonebayashi, who left to create Studio Ponoc, which is best known for Mary and the Witch's Flower, which I could have sworn was actually a Ghibli film. It's that similar. Second, it's the final work of legendary animator Makiko Futaki, who died in 2016. She worked on nearly every Ghibli film and even some of the biggest anime classics you've definitely heard of. This one is about Anna, a sickly girl with low self-esteem who goes to England for the summer and becomes friends with a mysterious girl living in a mysterious mansion, but not all meets the eye. This film is based on a Joan Robinson 1967 novel of the same name, and Yonebayashi intended it to be encouraging to children in Japan who felt lonely and isolated, and hoped that, quote, when they see Marnie, maybe they could take a little step forward. The animation is top-notch, with highly detailed character movements and backgrounds, and I really enjoyed this story. And be warned, this movie will probably make you quite the teary-eyed little fella. Kiki's Delivery Service is one of those Ghibli staples that any fan of the studio will tell you that you have to see, and they're definitely not wrong. The story is a simple one. Kiki is a 13-year-old witch in training who decides to move away from home with her cat Gigi and finds a new one in the big city. Adjusting to her new life is much more difficult than she expected, and this is one of the biggest points of the film. Kiki's Delivery Service is a heartwarming movie that teaches the very important lesson of overcoming adversity, which the main character must do when she forgets how to fly, because a witch who can't fly is as useful as me buying Dr. Ho's neck comforter. Kiki's Delivery Service is also a children's book created by Eko Kadono and won a heap of literary awards in Japan, and Miyazaki really wanted to adapt this one. This movie is just so darn delightful, and I can't stress enough that you should put this on your watch list. Totoro is the studio's mascot, much like Mickey Mouse is to Disney, so many newcomers feel inclined to watch this movie, and I definitely agree with that, but this isn't grade school, so I'm not going to force you. My Neighbor Totoro does speak to a certain demographic, and those are the kids, and the kids at heart. But honestly, anyone that just wants a large dose of dopamine should watch it because it's all about happy times. Even as an adult, you'll appreciate Totoro, even at the very least, because your children will be quietly sitting still for an hour and a half. This movie begins with both girls, Satsuki and Mei, and their father moving into a dusty old house in order to be closer to the hospital where their mother is recovering from a serious illness. Totoro has such wondrous creatures and imaginative spirits that the kids come across during their adventure, and you'll marvel at how Miyazaki concocted such a masterpiece that's quickly approaching 40 years old. Like fine wine, My Neighbor Totoro ages incredibly well and has plenty of replay value. From one neighbor to another, My Neighbors the Yamadas is Ghibli's version of The Simpsons and is surprisingly fun. This was my first time watching this movie, and one of the first things you'll love is the pencil-drawn comic style animation, which is actually 100% digital. Isao Takahata wanted this movie to have the art style of watercolor pictures, so the animation drawings were actually painted entirely on computers. Layered with these smooth and beautiful scenes is the grandiose music of fabled composer Akiko Yono. The Yamadas is a series of vignettes of the daily lives of the family, and they'll keep you chuckling throughout, especially that one hilarious scene when mom and dad duel for control of the remote. That one is epic. This movie is just so wholesome and so incredibly funny, and everyone in your family will definitely relate to one of them. The Yamadas is the hidden gem of the Ghibli movies because its lightheartedness makes for easy watching, and this is the only pure comedy the studio has attempted, and boy did they succeed. Ponyo is about as Disney as Studio Ghibli gets. Just look at the movie's main source of inspiration, which if you didn't get, it's The Little Mermaid. Now, Ponyo is a goldfish, and an adorable one at that. Aren't you the cutest little thing? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So Ponyo doesn't want to live that life anymore, and she decides to run away from home and makes friends with a boy on the shore, which ultimately pushes her to become a real human. Ponyo's animation also feels like Disney, with the vibrant colors and the lively characters, and the painstaking attention to detail for each scene down to the way the water moves should not be understated. Truly appreciate the beauty of the art in this film because Miyazaki closed the computer graphics section to focus on hand drawing everything. I personally can't get enough of how fun this movie is from beginning to end, and the best thing is that Ponyo is for everyone of all ages. If you don't believe me, then ask all the people who contributed to the $200 million+ to watch this film. And also remember that Miyazaki himself wanted to make a Ponyo sequel, which is not something he throws around on the regular. Now, if you love John Denver's classic song, Take Me Home Country Roads, then you'll hear plenty of it in Whisper of the Heart. This movie was a directorial debut of Yoshifumi Kondo, who was supposed to be the chosen one.
You were the chosen one!
To succeed Miyazaki after his first retirement. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1998 due to an aneurysm that doctors claim was due to overwork, but his talent will forever shine in this movie. Whisper of the Heart is about a young girl named Shizuku who is focused on becoming a great storyteller, and this focus takes her on an incredible journey of self-discovery. This beautifully executed film captures the magic and imagination of the human spirit, and the fantastic music, especially Country Roads, plays a different role each time it's played. Whisper of the Heart is a very good film that every kid should watch because it teaches the importance of never giving up on yourself. Because if you really want it, then the road won't be easy. This movie is definitely one that I saw for the first time, and it's likely the first time you're hearing of this, so definitely put this one on your watch list. Whoa, I just learned that Whisper of the Heart has a live-action sequel of the same name, not by Ghibli, but takes place 10 years after the events of the anime. Well, I know what I'm about to do. Castle in the Sky is the movie that started it all for Ghibli, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise because it's simply not true. The opening begins with a young boy named Pazu, who sees a little girl falling from the sky who's wearing a brilliant necklace. We soon learn her name is Shida, and look, is it me, or does she look an awful lot like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service and Satsuki from My Neighbor Totoro? Is there some sort of parallel Ghibli verse I don't know about? Before I take the nerdiest deep dive into the internet that none of you guys are asking for, Castle in the Sky takes place in an alternate version of the 1800s, where air pirates and magic stones exist. Shida and Pazu go on an epic adventure to search for the title location, while avoiding some of the goofiest bad guys. And what makes this movie so interesting is that things unexpectedly evolve into something grander that puts the entire world at stake. People do believe that Castle in the Sky is the spiritual successor of sorts to Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, and if that is the case, it wouldn't change anything about how excellent this movie is on its own. You'll enjoy the captivating storyline, amazing music, downright funny moments it provides, and the great Mark Hamill voices the main villain in this one, which you already know if you've watched any Batman animated show that he always brings his best when it comes to the bad guys. Compared to Ghibli's other adventure movies, this one is often overlooked, so don't you make that same mistake. While Howl's Moving Castle is personally my favorite Ghibli movie, I'm also aware there are genuinely better ones. This loose adaptation of a Diane Wynne-Jones novel is about a young milliner named Sophie who falls under a witch's curse that ages her significantly. On her quest to undo this curse, she encounters a talented wizard named Howl and gets caught up in his resistance to fighting for the king. What makes this film so good is the complexity behind these characters, as each one has their own demons, some literally. Take Howl. On the surface he's calm, suave, and confident. However, if you peel back the layers, you learn how petty, terrified, and vain he really is. This goes the same for many of these characters in different ways, and is a major testament to its excellent character development. In addition, the voice acting is what makes these people so believable, like Christian Bale as the title character, Billy Crystal as the fire demon Calcifer, and the Witch of the Waste, who's played by Lauren Bacall, one of the best-known stars of the golden age of Hollywood. Howl's Moving Castle is an anti-war film that Miyazaki has not shied away from. In fact, his criticism of the US involvement in the Iraq War is what inspired this film in the first place. Before you think Howl's Moving Castle is too serious and not for kids, Miyazaki brilliantly mixes this heavy plot with lighthearted fun, lovable characters, and beautiful animation. Also, you can't deny that Howl's Moving Castle is also the GOAT of castles. Just look at this thing. This film is also one of the many Ghibli films nominated for an Oscar, and in my honest opinion, should have ran away with it. Grave of the Fireflies is Takahata's first Ghibli film, and is the one that will definitely stick with you forever. Set during the final months of World War II after the US dropped incendiary bombs on the city of Kobe, Japan, We follow two young siblings, Saita and Setsuko, as they struggle to survive the aftermath of this horrendous event. Fireflies has the well-earned reputation of being one of the hardest movies to watch because it portrays the ugly and gruesome after effects of war for the people not directly involved. This film is nearly 90 minutes of two kids struggling to survive, and no person with an actual soul can't finish this film dry-eyed, especially when each scene is designed to pull at your heartstrings. I genuinely thought I was emotionally prepared to watch it without crying, but it really does move you in ways you don't expect. Watching every trial and tribulation they encounter, knowing that this actually happened to tens of thousands of people nearly a century ago, really puts things into perspective. Grave of the Fireflies is a cinematic masterpiece because of the powerful storytelling, the beautifully haunting musical score, and the immersive emotional experience you'll feel watching it, and is every bit deserved of that perfect 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Thematically, this film also screams anti-war, and while that may not have been Takahata's intent, this is what it will be known as, which isn't a bad thing at all. Grave of the Fireflies is one of the boldest war films in cinema, and is one that you should watch at least once in your lifetime, but only when you're emotionally ready to handle it. I can almost guarantee you that this movie will open your eyes and will scar you a little, but you'll be a better person for it. We're finally in the top 3, folks, and Princess Mononoke is definitely worthy of being in this exclusive club. It was the first anime film to be released nationwide in American theaters way back in 1999, so many millennials like myself hold this one close to their hearts. This PG-13 movie literally has boars, gore, and swords, so the youngest of children shouldn't be watching, but if you clear that hurdle, then you will have a whopping good time. Princess Mononoke is an epic tale about a young Ainu prince named Ashitaka who must travel west to find a way to lift a curse that is slowly killing him. It's not long before he's thrust into a titanic struggle between the forest dwellers and the humans consuming its resources. This movie is an important milestone not just in Japanese animation, but what it represents, which is the duality between the environment and humans. Princess Mononoke shows how both sides feel threatened by the other when in reality both need each other in order to survive. The animation is breathtaking to watch, from the serene and calming scenery to the terrifying moments, and the way Joe Hisaishi's musical score complements these monumental parts is just sheer perfection. Lady Eboshi is also one of the most complex characters in the Ghibliverse because her beliefs and motives to make the world a better place directly coincides with her wrongdoings on the environment. Eboshi's complexity makes her a captivating character that rivals such villains as Eric Killmonger and Thanos of the MCU. Princess Mononoke was groundbreaking at the time of its release, but didn't get the recognition it deserved because the rest of the world wasn't quite ready for this kind of film, but that's no longer the case today. Yeah, I'm shocked too, because before I started this experiment, I was as confident that Spirited Away was topping this list as The Sky is Blue. Heck, I made an entire video on why this film is an absolute masterpiece, which, if you're interested in how Spirited Away became such an icon, then you should check out, after you're finished with this one, of course. Spirited Away is so popular that even non-anime watchers have at least heard of this one because it holds a lofty reputation. This film earned nearly $400 million in the box office, which is a lot of butts and seats. And don't forget, it's still the only anime to win that skinny little golden statue of a knight holding a sword. Spirited Away brought anime to the masses in a way that many didn't expect, and that genie will never go back in the bottle. Anime wouldn't be as popular as it is today without at least some contribution from this movie. As the saying goes that I just completely made up, quote, Princess Mononoke walked so Spirited Away could run. Spirited Away is a film that centers around a 10-year-old girl named Chihiro, who becomes trapped in a world of spirits and must save her parents in order to escape. This movie is a surreal, magical adventure with quirky characters, hilarious moments, and wonderful music that makes a memorable experience for everyone, especially the newest of anime fans. There are countless moments throughout Spirited Away that will make you smile, laugh, and maybe scare you a little, but you will definitely enjoy the ride with Chihiro and root for her to win. If you don't believe me, watch the countless videos or read the numerous articles that praise this movie, which I agree with every single one. Spirited Away is truly Miyazaki's magnum opus that will stand the test of time, and it is truly the gold standard of anime as we know it. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is Takahata's last directed film before he passed away in 2016, and like his first, this one is also an absolute masterclass. Based on one of the oldest surviving monogatari, The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, this movie details the life of Princess Kaguya Hime of the Moon, which starts from her birth inside of a glowing bamboo stalk to her growth into a beautiful deity. I can say with 100% confidence that The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is by far and away Ghibli's most gorgeously executed movie, because you'll be wowed with the 100% beautifully hand-drawn animation mixed with the elegant and captivating music of Joe Hisaishi. When it comes to the music, Hisaishi's contribution is particularly noteworthy, as Kaguya is the only Ghibli film he composed without Hayao Miyazaki directing. Feminism is an important theme throughout this movie because Kaguya Hime grows up to become a self-sufficient young lady, but she is criticized heavily because of traditional Japanese gender norms. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya is a bona fide masterpiece, and you and your family will enjoy every single moment. The biggest travesty is that it didn't win an Academy Award, and while Big Hero 6 is a fine movie, it fails in comparison to everything that Kaguya represents. I do want to say how genuinely surprised I was choosing Kaguya over Spirited Away, but after watching Spirited Away again, I realized how disorienting and bothersome some moments can be, to the point that the youngest of audiences could find it scary. Kaguya lacks these unfavorable features, but still matches Spirited Away in everything that makes a great Ghibli film. Look, both movies, heck, most of these films are all great and worthy of watching, so I'm really nitpicking here, but I just wanted to find the truest representation of a Ghibli film that everyone would enjoy, and I think The Tale of the Princess Kaguya best represents that. There is no creator like Studio Ghibli, because in a world where content is based on quantity and profitability, Ghibli continues to focus on crafting beautiful, lesser-known stories that teach people about themselves and the world around them. Each movie walks to the beat of their own drum, and I have long admired these works. Now, you may not agree with this list, which is fine because we all have our own tastes at the end of the day. Besides, this ranking serves a greater purpose, which is to get people to watch or rewatch and appreciate the captivating works of Studio Ghibli because they represent a dying art. Personally, I feel people collectively should aspire to find the true beauty within themselves and what they create, and there is no doubt in my mind that Ghibli unapologetically does just that. Now, if you've got anything to say, I'd love to hear it and talk some more about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can send me an email, or you can find me on Twitter or Facebook. Oh, and one more thing. If you like what you're watching, feel free to subscribe by clicking that platypus to keep up with my latest videos. Thanks for watching, and stay nerdious.